Hey guys, Biceps here, bringing you this Death Knight podcast for the Midnight expansion. I sat down with Obli and Waalpen to just talk about Frost and Unholy DKs, discussing the current power, our feelings for the changes, and lots of other bits and pieces. I'll just let you guys see for yourself, enjoy, and have a good one. And then we'll go from there.
Yes. Hello, everybody. My name is Obli, and I am just Death Knight content creator. Really, I post everything that I'm doing, and I bloody love it. I'm on YouTube, I'm on Twitch, but it's mainly sort of raiding that is my sort of forte, into sort of teaching new Death Knights how to do certain things in certain areas, because I do stuff like Mythic Plus as well. But yeah, I've been playing the game for 15 years. I've been playing Death Knight for 15 years as well, and I've never looked back. I think I tried to play something else once, and it was an awful experience, and I'll never do it again. It's like cheating on your barber. I'll never do that again. But yeah, that's a bit about me.
Could I ask a follow-up question for you? Does your name, I assume it comes from the Frost Death Knight Obliterate? Or?
Yeah, so when I first made my Death Knight, it was called Oblitorix, and everyone just called me Obli. But the realm that I was on Draenor. Obli was actually available, so I was like, yeah, I'll take that. So I changed my name to Obli, and then it's just been Obli ever since, really. But that was a good, I've been Oblitorix. God, I think that was literally bang on 15 years ago as well.
Nice, thank you. Waalpen, you want to do? Is it Waalpen? Waalpen? How do you even pronounce
Waalpen.
it? Waalpen.
It depends if you're Swede or not. That's the thing.
Oh yeah, but I'm gonna say Waalpen.
Yeah, exactly. Yep, my name is Waalpen, or Waalpen, as most commonly known. I'm a DK enjoyer who's been playing DK for 10-ish years now. Started out as mostly M+, went on to becoming, I would say, a hardcore raider in recent times, raiding a top 10 world guild at the moment. So there's a lot of prep for that. Been getting title almost every single season on DK. I missed 2 seasons, sadly enough, on DK. Yeah, that's about me.
All right, nice. I can go next. I'm Biceps Pump. I write the Icy Veins, Frost and Unholy guides. I sometimes stream on Twitch, and I make YouTube videos. I also play around with the APL to kind of support the guide writing. So I actually verify various different rotational questions I might come up with or believe are correct, but don't actually have the kind of raw stats to support it. Maybe I can go first with kind of like an open question. So what is the vibe with Frost DK in Midnight? What do you guys think about the changes to power? The T, so to speak.
I'll let the veteran take the space. Waalpen, you can definitely go first on that one.
Okay. I have a lot of passion about Frost DK, as I've been known for the Frost DK main. Let's say like that. It's very rare I do play Unholy, but currently I'm kind of forced into it. And I have a vibe of it being a terrible spec at the moment, and I despise it at every point I possibly can. They made several changes in the Midnight Now beta, which simply just doesn't make any sense if you ask me, of how it plays and how it did in the War Within Season 3, which it got its big rework, almost its Midnight rework. And there it got reworked into probably the best spec ever. And then they decide that, well, we add an Apex talent that doesn't really make sense to me, forcing us into talents we don't want generally. And then destroying the best hero talent on top of that, with just adding extra mechanic to it that doesn't fit its playstyle at all.
All right, maybe we should also
initial take.
Highlight for people that are not completely on top of this. So I assume you're talking about the fact that Deathbringer Exterminates no longer reduce the cost of Obliterate.
Yes,
that's a big one.
Yes.
So you
that's a very big one. On top of that, you have that Frostwind Fury, which is combined with the new Apex talents, so you're forced into taking that. Deathbringer never talented Frostwind Fury before, pretty much. Very rare scenario you did. And on top of that, the new hero talents adds 2 exterminate stacks when you use it. And which is how you are wanting to play the Apex talents, is that you want to Frostwind Fury right at the start on your pillar, because there's a haste bonus on the Apex talents. So you need your globals, first 2 globals, to be perfectly aligned for your 2 obliterates to consume the 2 exterminate stacks you get from this Frostwind Fury. Otherwise, they will get basically consumed by you proccing your Reaper's Mark.
Yeah.
And there's not really any counterplay to it.
I think it is very clunky. The best play I've seen is that you pop Reaper's Mark, you consume both exterminates, then cast Frostworm, you consume the next 2 exterminates, and then you Frostworm again at the end of pillar. But it's just so heavy on the rune consumption, and with the nerf to exterminate now reducing the cost, it's kind of like you don't really have time or the resources to actually execute it in a way where it flows.
Yeah, it does feel really weird.
Yeah.
The trouble with Frost as well is like Frost is such a satisfying rotation, and that just kind of interrupts it quite a lot. And with it giving you the more exterminates, and then it not actually reducing the cost. I mean, the only good thing is the fact that with the tier set you get the additional charge of empowering weapon, which kind of makes its flow a little bit better. But like right now, as we're level 90 and not as our most powerful selves, it doesn't feel good. It feels like I just don't have enough to get through my entire rotation, which is it's obviously like complaining now when in reality like it's only going to take a couple of weeks for it to be fine again. But
I do think it is an issue because it also makes obliteration completely irrelevant. Like the number of actual killer machines you generate via that talent is just reduced so heavily because everything just comes from the empowered weapons and exterminates.
Yeah, that's so true.
It's quite interesting
that overflow of it at the moment, which it kind of doesn't feel good anymore, which is the biggest thing.
I agree. It's also interesting because they changed so little, and that still had such a big impact, being just shoehorned into picking Frostwind's Fury, and then also kind of making
I think Frostwind's Fury should.
Yeah.
Oh no, go on. You finish your point before I start mine.
I forgot it. Go ahead. Talk about Frostwind's Fury.
Fair enough. I think Frostwind's Fury should just be baseline. I don't think it should be like this talent that we should pick. I feel like something like Frostwind's Fury is really iconic in terms of being a Frost DK. Like this could easily just be a baseline spell and just replace it with something else. But
I think the main it's just a GCD, right? That you don't want to spend, which I think is the main issue. If that was off the GCD, everything would be fine. Like most things would be fine.
Yes.
We'd also remove some of the satisfaction of actually pressing like a big button.
Like it actually does do quite good damage now as well when you do like fill out your apex. So it's for me when I was doing the beta testing, it was relatively satisfying when I did get to bring them both back in the same pillar window, because before Deathbringer got buffed and you were doing it with Rider, I tend to do my Frostwind's Fury once with my 1.5 and then send it again with my 45-second burst for another round of Riders. And that didn't feel great because you had to wait for the Frostworm damage essentially. I was like, now it's kind of feels a bit better, but it's still not. It's like a GCD that isn't exactly that much better than just doing a Frostbane or doing a Frost Scythe.
But I think that's also the issue with Frost, right? There's so many, or the GCDs in general feel so impactful. It kind of pushes out anything else from the rotation and makes it feel like, now I didn't press an Obliterate or I didn't press a Frost Scythe, and that feels bad to some degree.
Yeah. I think with Frostbane as well, there's so much going on. And it's like difficult to tell what you should be pressing in certain moments if you're a new player, especially if you played around with it for a fair amount, and if you did a bit of Frostbane playing a couple seasons ago, because there was a brief moment where Frostbane was in the mix. Kind of got a feel for it, but like now, I'm still just ignoring rhymes all the time. Like I know that there's like a bit of talk around how you don't really want to lose out on the 6-second recovery of empowering weapon,
Oh yeah.
which is so much raw damage that you lose out by sacrificing like a third of your GCDs in your pillar window for Rhyme because it's so weak. But yeah, I think Frost does definitely have a bit of a problem with weak GCDs that you're forced to press in the cooldowns, with Frost and Fury being one of them.
Well, we'll see. Hopefully they can iterate on it, on top of it, because I feel like they did really hit the spot last expansion, and they really haven't changed much. So I feel like they didn't need to make that many differences to actually make it feel good to play. What do you guys think about the power level? Because I think that's something everyone wants to know about. How good is Frost DK in Midnight?
That's a good question. I don't think it's too bad. I just think Unholy is so good. So it really kind of just pushes it away.
What do you think?
Yes,
Waalpen?
because the problem I see, if like as a DK, you usually compare it to the other spec, right? And to me, Frost DK becomes like the worst spec in the game because Unholy is so good, and that's probably the problem here. Is that our ratio between how good Unholy is versus how good Frost is. Frost is like, I would say, above the average of like how good specs are. It just feels so horrible. That's my biggest issue. That it doesn't feel good. If it felt fine, it probably would have been more than average and probably good to play.
Yeah, I agree. So I think we're all hoping
think-
for maybe some more iterations to happen, right? To
Yes.
just make it
I think
feel a
one
bit
of
better.
like a really big problem is obviously the single target disparity, because there's so much like such a big difference between Frost single target and Unholy single target. You can really tell in keys. Like in the beta, it was very, very obvious that bosses were taking a lot longer. And I think that really does drive the DPS down, but also just the satisfaction of the spec down as well, just contributing more to how it just doesn't really feel very good. So in terms of like the power level, the thing that sucks as well is Unholy's only going to get better. Well, it doesn't suck, but like the thing that's interesting is that Unholy's obviously only going to get better with more secondary stats, whereas Frost doesn't quite scale like Unholy does. So it's not even going to feel that good when we're fully geared out.
I think the thing we're waiting for here is like a balance round, because it's always difficult to speak about these
Yes.
things, and then suddenly there's a big change, and Unholy gets nerfed heavily, and then you are looking at a much more level playing field. It's always an interesting aspect though. I feel like Frost and Unholy populations are generally very flexible and will move about, swapping between the two quite frequently.
I think what they could do, genuinely, I think if they just fix Rhyme and made Rhyme hit even harder, that could solve quite a lot of like the single target issues that come with Frost, and just bring its DPS up just a little bit more, but just so that it's not so far behind Unholy. I don't mind when Unholy does creep ahead, because then the last seasons have been like Frost, then Unholy, then Frost. So if this is going to be an Unholy season, that's fine. But it shouldn't be so bad or so different that you just couldn't pick it at all. Because like Waalpen said, if you're like we will compare Frost to Unholy, but so will everybody else when you're looking at joining groups. Like if you're a pug and you're the weaker spec, people will just be like, "Why are you doing that? Why are you spec that way?" It's like, because it's fun. Please invite me.
All right, so what do we think about Unholy? I feel like you guys don't tend to play Unholy that much, but what's your opinion about the rework and the new kind of Unholy?
Can start here.
Yeah. I play whatever's the best, to be fair. And I think like last season we had probably more seasons where Frost was better. But I like this is like a sore spot for me. I thought Unholy actually wasn't that bad last season. I know everyone can shoot me now, but I actually didn't mind it. I know you didn't mind either, at Biceps. But
Oh, yeah.
I think the new rework is also really cool. I think that the damage profile is kind of a little bit whack, but in terms of thematically, it's great. Like I've always wanted Unholy DK to be doing damage from minions and from diseases, so this is good for me. But it obviously has been pruned quite a bit, and now that we're playing Ryder, because Ryder's better, you really do see how much or not much, how little there is to do with Unholy DK now. Like, I'm actually getting bored playing it. I don't know. I feel like there's buttons to press, but they're just not satisfying. Like Scourge striking for your ghouls, even though if you look at details, you're doing good damage. It doesn't feel like you're doing good damage. So to me, when I'm just spamming Scourge Strike over and over again until I eventually get a Sudden Doom proc, and then I eventually get a Putrefy proc, I'm getting a bit bored. And because Sand Lane obviously gives you that extra layer of thinking, that can kind of keep you active. Like thinking about, shit, do I need to spend some runic power so I can bank up a Vampiric Strike proc and then cast it from range moving into the next pack, or thinking about like casting your Dark Transformation, how powerful your Dark Transformations are in Sand Lane. Whereas when you're Rider, there's just nothing really going on. You don't really ever interact with Rider. You just press your buttons as normal, and there you go. And I had this discussion in my Discord on whether or not Rider is boring. And most people said that Rider was kind of boring, but with like 1 or 2 tweaks, it would be a lot better. So I cooked up in my head that Rider would be a lot better if there was one button that was just like Empowering Weapon, where it would just summon your horses, but it was like a charged ability where you could hold it like an Empower spell, hold it for the full charge, and then you do like 4 of your horses. I just felt like there needed to be something with Rider, otherwise, yeah. Now that the classes are pruned, it is kind of boring.
So I must agree that they have. It's difficult to find any ways of skill expression that is beyond the absolute kind of baseline keep track of your resources bits, which I also think is a potential issue. There are things where I imagine kind of where you use the Soul Reapers in Execute and saving up your Putrefys to use with your Dark Transformation. That's a little bit there. But yeah, I agree that there is very little room for actually expressing skill, which is always good about it. It makes it easy to play and easy to actually perform well, but then also removes that satisfaction of actually feeling like, all right, I've mastered this spec, I know what I'm doing, and that's why I'm doing a lot of damage.
I agree, definitely. I hate it when you're judged on how well you play a class based on how well your RNG was. I hate that. I wish that there was no RNG in the game ever. But I think I was speaking to somebody and asking like what the RNG sort of variation is for Unholy, and apparently it's actually quite a lot, and it's based on your Apex talent, whether or not it actually procs. And if you get loads of procs, and your RNG can actually skyrocket your DPS.
I think, from my opinion, in general, they've done a good job about reworking the spec. I like obviously wounds have been nice, but they really don't quite fit in. This whole quadratic scaling used to be really exciting and interesting, but now it's, you were kind of just overflowing on wounds and resources that you didn't really care about them. You didn't feel them in the same way. So I like it that they've just rethought the entire rotation. Obviously, put the buff on you, made everything a bit more streamlined and nicer and more obvious when you play. But then,
yeah, I think that's good.
It would be nice if you had, I like Frost with Empowering Weapon because I feel like that's a nice area of skill expression. It's such a fun ability, like picking out when to use it exactly in all different cases, scenarios. It would just be nice if to have something equivalent. I think they tried doing that with Putrefy, and that would be like your fun button that you can express your skill with, but it doesn't just hit the mark. I don't know.
I felt that as well. I completely agree with the Putrefy thing. It does kind of feel like they've tried to give Unholy something, but I think there could eventually be a world where they change the hero talents a bit around and maybe move away Rider, just change that to something different, and maybe make Unholy just have kind of like Rider as a baseline, and have that one ability where it's summoning the horses. I feel like that could work at some point.
Yeah. What do you guys think about the kind of disease or plague rework?
I've just said something, so
I
I'll
like
let
it.
Waalpen say something.
I mean, you guys covered most points, but one thing that with the rework that I kinda makes it a bit weird is the whole range part of Unholy, where you have little to zero reasons to be in melee anymore.
Oh yeah.
Almost.
Yep.
Which is so weird to me. As a melee player, I am almost a fully ranged. I can be out of range for 20 seconds without being punished, besides losing melees, which is so little damage, even as Unholy, that it feels so wrong to be a melee and you're not having to be there.
It does feel wrong, but it does feel good.
Yeah.
I feel like
I think it does great.
it's super nice, right? It's such a good kind of perk of playing Unholy,
Yes.
and it's been a thing for ages, right? We've always had Clawing Shadows and been
Yes.
able to death call from range,
Yes.
and now they kind of just went, well, you know, we're just gonna make that even better.
Yeah.
And also with like the new Apex talents, you get so many natural kind of Festering Strike stacks anyway, so the amount of Festering Strike you need to do are very low. So I 100% agree.
Yes.
It's quite interesting, the fact that we are so flexible from range, but it's super nice, right, for raiding. Because the more damage you can do from
100%.
range, the better you are on average at dealing mechanics, making sure you stay on top of things. And to some degree, it is skill expression. Like, I know for us that play a lot and we raid a lot, being able to do damage when do mechanics is something we think are obvious. But when you look at the total population, playing Unholy is going to be so nice because they can then, you know, just like BM hunters, run around, keep doing their stuff, and not lose damage.
Yeah, I think I actually can't wait to give this tier a go as Unholy, because I do love Frost, and I think if I had to choose one, I would be choosing Frost. But I do think that it's very interesting to be who we are as this version of Unholy and see how it kind of changes the way that raiding feels, knowing that we can just literally just run away. Because I remember like playing Frost, like Lumathar, for example. If you get the mechanic where you need to the string where you have to go out and go right to the edge and come back,
Yeah.
I'd always have to think like, okay, I need to bank a Rhyme proc so that when I do run away, I can do some damage from range. I'm not just doing nothing. Whereas like now, you don't even have to worry about that at all. I think that's quite cool.
And I think it's nice when you play the spec, right? There's nothing worse than being forced out of range and lose damage because of it, just due to RNG. We talk about RNG and the rotation, and you sometimes doing more or less damage, but this negative RNG is just the absolute worst.
Yeah.
Back in the day when you
Yes,
played Breath
yes.
Synagosa and you got forced out due to a mechanic and your pool was ruined, that's the worst feeling ever. So
Yes.
Oh my god, yeah.
I think it's a very positive thing that we're so good at range. It's only something that's, you know, nice to have, and one of the really big perks about playing Unholy.
I think one thing that's quite interesting is with Frost, so kind of switching off of Frost and talking about the new Frostbane build for Frost, obviously. You're forced away from Breath now, and I love Breath. I'm quite sad to see Breath go to the point where I will force and make Breath-bane work, so I don't have to let go of it. But you kind of have to have this constant uptime build with Icy Death Torrent and Long Winter Smothering Offense to go into that. And I feel like that's one of those points where if you have to move away from the boss because you're not using breath, you're not centralizing this damage into one moment, you have to make sure that your damage throughout the entire fight is always good and you're always on the target. That's gonna be hard to go from being Unholy and being able to move away freely and not even have a care in the world if you get a mechanic to then being Frostbane. And if you get one mechanic, you have to move away from the boss for 5 seconds. You suicidal after that.
Yeah.
I think that's going to be quite a stark difference between the two.
All right. Well,
actually, I have a question. I have a question for Waalpen.
Yep.
Have you tried much Breath-bane, or have you been Icy Death Torrent gamer?
I have. I've started out Breath-bane as soon as I logged into beta. We all remember Frost's Apex talents was probably the worst in the game, and it was unplayable. So I started out, okay, this is probably better, and it was clearly better. So I played a lot of it at the start, but as soon as they nerfed it, I went over more to the Frostbane build as I found it more interactive and more fun. To say, it made Frost feel something, which like the Breath-bane is kind of not static, I wouldn't say, but you're kind of locked into the breath window still a bit too much, I feel.
Like
playing both without it just didn't feel right after the nerf, basically, to the exterminates and to not play Deathbringer anymore to it, in my opinion.
Yeah, the one thing that I always found with the Icy Death Torrent build was just the fact, like the lack of burst. because there was like, especially in the Algathar Academy, for some reason that dungeon really sticks out in my mind. But that specific dungeon has a few points where you want to just like burst something down, or you want to like put damage all into one moment. So for me, I've always found that because of Icy Death Torrent needing to have damage throughout the entire time, it's always just felt worse. And especially on bosses, I just feel like bosses, even though Frost DK single target isn't great anyway, I feel like on bosses, Icy Death Torrent really just doesn't pull the weight for me. But I don't know if this is just pure feely crafting and maybe a bit of cope. I feel like it really shines there. And for me, I think if there's a tuning pass, will a tuning pass give Breath sort of a bit more meaning? Because when we go into a raid, I reckon that's going to be the kind of type of build that we'll play. So I think if there was a tuning pass to help Frost out, I think I would prefer if it was a tuning pass that would benefit a Breath build as opposed to an Icy Death Torrent build. For me, it doesn't vibe well with me. I don't know. Biceps, have you had a chance to sort of touch
I'm just
Frost at all?
I'm just doing simulations, right? And from my point of view, it looks like Breath is the go-to one. So I'm not sure if there is a tuning pass needed. To be honest, I was gonna say that I would hope that they actually do buff Frostbane, so it ends up being the playstyle since Breath has been such a dominant one for so long.
Yeah, I think it's Breath DB, no Frostbane at the moment, but I want to see Frostbane played because I think it's a really interesting spell. But as soon as you incorporate Frostbane in and play Breath-bane, that's when it starts to taper off a little bit and you can't really do much. But then I think once you take off Breath and now you're just Frostbane, then you're kind of stuck. Your single target is completely up to the gods and RNG. Yeah,
all right.
That's my.
I think just move back to Unholy. No.
Yeah. Move back to Unholy.
I was gonna say, right. Unholy is looking pretty strong. What do you think is gonna happen there? How strong is it currently? And do you think it's gonna get nerfed due to its current power?
Yes.
Maybe,
and yes. And
okay.
Yes. Currently, I would say from a standpoint, like from my side of things, where you are very like going for the best comp in the raids and forth, I would not be surprised if you saw 3 to 4 in a raid right now. There is one other class that are as strong as we are, and that's Demo Warlock, and they are being talked as the gods. The problem that Demo has is that they are turrets, right? If they move, they don't do damage, basically. While DK, you don't have that. You don't have downtime. You are ranged melee. You will always do your damage. So I don't see a reason why probably DK isn't the strongest class at the moment. On Midnight at the moment.
Yeah, I think they absolutely nuke in single target. So in raid, Unholy will be a very top pick. I think the reason you're not seeing a lot of maybe top tier guilds really talking about this is probably evidence that it is really good. Because why would they? Do you know what I mean? But I definitely see. As much as it pains me to say it, I definitely see it getting nerfed.
I mean, my issue with it becoming nerfed is that current Unholy has the same issue Frost had before it got reworked. They added the problem to Unholy, which Frost had before it got its big rework, which is you can't separate the single target and the AoE of Unholy. It's very hard. The only button that does that is Epidemic. If they touch anything else, it's a single target and a AoE nerf at the same time. Which
very true.
Which adds to this problem that they really wanted to fix with Frost was that they could have turning knobs on what ability of if we want to add more AoE, add more single target, and they've just spawned this problem on Unholy, I feel like, which is going to make it super hard to tune it right for both M Plus and Raid, which it's most likely from playing M Plus on the beta and stuff that you will most likely be really, really good in the Raid, even though we get nerfed because we're so far ahead. But in M Plus, we'll most likely fall behind because they won't buff the AoE in the same way because they don't really care about the AoE in the same sense at the start of a season as they do later on.
I think it's a bit of a blessing and a curse, because Unholy previously had an issue where you would either talent into single target or AoE. There were just not that many talents that were shared between the two, and meant that we were not that good in Myth Plus because we would have to sacrifice too much single target to actually be competitive in AoE. Whereas now we just get both, and we don't have to kind of pick one or the other, which is very nice from a being powerful point of view, but not too much from like having diverse talent loadouts and whatever. But I think it's also
it's literally it's like just 1 point realistically that you maybe 1 or 2 points that you just move. It's like mages. You just make mages do the cleaving shadow bolts, and then as soon as you do that, like instantly, you have a full kit of AoE. It's 1 point.
Yes.
I think mages is super slept on as well. I think mages really does pump more than it lets on.
But yeah, I think it's positive for being like, being a good Myth prospect obviously means you have to bring both good single target and AoE, and I feel like this iteration on Holy has the potential of doing so. We have for so long been this gimmick big AoE spec, and haven't been able to bring that nice balance that we often need in a Myth Plus scenario.
Biceps, do you miss old Unholy yet?
We'll see when I get the time to actually play a bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely miss the quadratic scaling, I think.
Oh yeah, but that was like the initial quadratic scaling when we played Model Load back in BFA. If you guys remember that was peak. Because it was also it wasn't that well discovered, and some people joined MDI and then you just did like 2 million DPS, and everyone was like, wow. And then they kind of nurtured that, and it was always been like a bit of a piece of our kit to have this insane scaling. Obviously now we primarily have Epidemic left of it, and I think that's nice. Because it's also a problem, right? If you do that much AoE in big AoE, you can't be tuned well elsewhere, because then you end up being way overpowered. And then you have this very specific niche, you are super good when you can just pull the entire dungeon. But that doesn't happen in normal scenarios. So it means that 99% of the players just don't see the benefit.
I remember when that MDI was actually out and I was playing my DK and my team were trying to replicate the stuff they were doing in the MDI. And I'm not the man I was. I mean, I wasn't the man back then that I am now. So trying to replicate that was just not on the cards for me or them, to be honest. And it was just, I remember just watching them and thinking, how is the tank, first off, surviving that?
Right.
And secondly, how is everybody else surviving it afterwards? But yeah, that was such a interesting version of Unholy, but I think that was the first time when people actually looked at Unholy and was like, this could potentially blow up and do something stupid. And then they left it alone for ages, and it kept on being that way.
What do you guys think about Unholy's AoE in Midnight then? How does it compare to other classes? How does it scale? How powerful is it in general? And how fit is it for Mythic Plus? What do you guys think?
I think it's really good at the moment. It's probably not the best. I would say Demo Warlock probably has a bit more AoE than what Unholy has, and so does Arcane at the moment. But I would say behind Arcane and Demo, you definitely have a DK, and then we haven't really gotten to the point where we talk defensively about DK, which nothing even comes in comparison to what DK really is in that sense. Which you just have, you are just there. You don't need any external when it comes to M+. You live everything.
They actually buffed our defensive power, didn't they?
In hindsight, yes. Even after the nerf to the rune, yes.
Yeah. How much was it? Was it permanent 18% DR from the Rune of Apocalypse?
18% before. Yes, yes.
Okay. What is it now?
The main target, it was it's 1% per stack now, which I don't remember how many is. I mean, it's so hard to track, so I don't even know what is exactly now. Is it 3 or 4?
I think it was 3 before.
Yeah.
Okay.
I mean, I just love having
3.8. I'm being told 3.8.
3.8. It's such a specific number, isn't it?
Yeah.
I do think that is such a cool thing, though, that we're now using Rune of the Apocalypse for Unholy. Like, I don't actually realize how much I think it affects the theme of the class, being like having your runeforge change between specs. and it's a very fitting runeforge, and it's one that we've had for ages as well. And now it works. And I think the best thing Blizzard done is nothing, because normally this is when Blizzard intercepts and say, "Oh no, that's far too much fun," and nerf it to the ground when you just wouldn't even use it. But they haven't. They've actually left it. We've discovered that this is better, and they've just left it alone. W Blizzard.
I think it's super nice. Like, I can't remember a time when
Yeah.
I haven't used Rune of the Fallen Crusader.
Yeah, literally.
So
It probably hasn't happened since DK got introduced, right?
yeah,
Rune forging obviously just used to be like you click it, forget it, put it on your weapon, never look at it again. And I think that's something that I kind of miss as a DK, is the fact that like you don't enchant your weapon ever. You just do this one rune forge. It doesn't feel like a upgrade getting your weapon enchant, because everybody else, like when Sophic Devotion was in, as soon as you got like a rank 3 Sophic Devotion and put that on your weapon in Dragonflight, you were like, shit, I'm about to do some damage now. Whereas like rune forging is just this thing that you just have to do as a DK, and it's just done. Whereas like now it's kind of got a little bit of flair to it, and I think that's good. I like it.
all right. How does our defensive power compare to other specs and classes? Like, how much better are we compared to everyone
Yeah.
else?
I love
20,
AMS.
30% stronger than any other class, I think.
Nice.
It's
And-
so strong.
I mean,
But
that's no. Go on.
one thing to think about is that yes, DK are incredibly tanky, but I think they think that we are supposed to be this tanky because of the lack of other utility we kinda lack. We lack utility in a lot of departments where other classes has way more when it comes to stuns, CCs, movement. Sure, our movement is not that bad anymore, especially if you play riders. But you don't have a blink, for an example. Many classes has a blinks, which can ignore mechanics in some way or form. So to say that we just have the tankiness and it should be on par with everyone else, I think no, simply because we would need to get something in compensation, because otherwise our class would probably feel very lackluster, in my opinion.
Right. Do you feel like we are compensating the lack of utility with defensive power? But do you think, is that enough? Like, can we get brought to Mythic Plus just for being really tanky? Or do we really
Yes.
need to be one of the guys that bring like way more DPS than everyone else to actually get invited?
I mean, the last seasons we have never been the top DPS, and we have still been brought, right? In season 3, we did not top DPS. That was BM Hunter or Elemental. That was like
Yeah.
the top DPS, simply because they did way more damage. But DK was brought because it was not bad. There were classes that could be on par with DK, but they were just so incredibly tanky, and nothing was really close to that part, and you needed to put like externals on other classes.
Right.
You could just bring
Which-
a DK and just trust that they'll get the
Yes.
shit done.
And
Yes.
to some degree, we're buffing other people's survivability because the healer can
Yes.
focus on them more, right? What do you guys think about this
Yes,
current
because
season?
we also have
Is that going to be like
Cool.
the same scenario where survivability is sufficiently important? That is like, it's good to bring DK because we never need to care about them? Or what do you guys think?
I mean, I've always thought that you can min-max AMS a lot as well. And like, if you as a group think about AMS as like a external cooldown, and where you can save yourself some globals, like not having to do CC if like a certain spell that you can't interrupt is aimed at the DK and they can just AMS it. That's just going to make sort of the key go faster if you don't have to stun or do something that's on the GCD instead of just pressing buttons. But I mean, there wasn't like anything that super outstood in the testing that was like, it's necessary for you to have like AMS and be a DK, apart from Magister's Terrace. I feel like Magister's Terrace has so many things that a DK can ignore and make a lot easier, that it's pretty necessary. Like if you like the Runic Glaive, like if you just AMS that, then it doesn't bounce. And Runic Glaive does so much damage to you. and your party. And then as well, you have the second boss where you can just AMS the runic mark, and then that's just gone. He doesn't have to worry about that at all. And you got the last boss as well, where you can, when you soak the thing, and it leaves you the nasty dot. Obviously, just AMS that, and the healer can just DPS. So I think that's the only thing that really sticks out of my mind. I don't know about you guys though.
Yeah, I would agree to the most part. It's the usage of AMS is very interesting in some ways because you can use it in so many different ways. You can use it as a resource, even like to do more damage, which was a huge part of like Frost DK when Breath was a thing, to be incorporated into just doing damage, basically adding damage, which you still can in many sense.
I think that actually might be something that people will look at in Unholy, because how important necrotic coils are in single target. I think that it would definitely be like a big DPS increase for you to soak something to refill your bar and keep coiling.
Yeah, especially in like your 45 window to min-max Whitemane's uptime. I think that could be a really important thing to think about in Unholy, where you don't have Whitemane up for as long, but if you get enough runic power, you can actually have her up for quite some time and do quite decent AoE, since she like does your epidemics as you are doing them. So that's like one of the min-max things that does exist, which could be really interesting.
Yeah, that's actually a very good point. I didn't think too much about that, but now that you say it, I'm definitely going to be thinking about that.
I was a bit skeptical today. It's like, how much do you think that impacts your DPS? It's always really hard to kind of
I don't
gauge.
I think it's more of a M plus thing
Yeah.
when it comes to min maxing M plus, more than it comes to raiding, because epidemic scales depending on how many targets you have, right?
Yeah.
While if you're single targeting and def coiling, it doesn't really change if you get 1 or 2 extra, right? But if you are fighting 30 mobs and you get, let's say, 2 extra epidemics from Whitemane, that's quite a lot of damage when you think about it. So I think it's more of a M plus thing to really think how you are going into your 45s more than your 1.5 to think about your runic power.
Yeah, and you're 1.5, so you're set. Like, you've got all the resources in the world. Your army's giving it.
Yes.
You're absolutely fine. But it's that 45-second window that can potentially be very, very weak, like you said, or very, very strong. I think in raiding, it's going to be difficult to. I think it's going to be difficult to sort of separate that skill expression, because in raiding it will just be like who can do the best single target, which I do think comes down to can you line up your cooldowns with the boss mechanics the best, which after one person does, everybody will be able to, because they'll just look at your logs. But then it will just be who's soaked more runic power during their burst windows.
Right. Well, I was going to ask, so do you guys think, does Unholy have the potential, if we consider damage profile, tankiness, utility, the whole kind of aspect, to be Mythic Plus meta in the first season of Midnight? And how much does it need to be nerfed to kind of keep that spot?
It depends on what else gets nerfed, I would say.
Yeah. Does it need to be the top DPS to be meta, or can it be, mid of the pack and still be meta?
It doesn't need to be top DPS in the same way. I think it's in the same way that Frost was the last seasons, as its tankiness helps a lot. Sure, grip is not the same value as other seasons, but you still have the tankiness, and as long as you have the single target there, I don't see a reason why you wouldn't be playing it.
I can't imagine. Yeah, I can't. I mean, what season was it where you were purposefully bringing a Frost DK just because they just could do everything so smoothly? But I think it actually was it season 3, where if you actually wanted to bring the top DPS in Mythic Plus, you're just bringing 3 BM hunters. Right. And if you did that, then obviously you're not going to have a very good time, possibly. So I mean, I think definitely more plays into it than just damage. And I think even though they pruned a lot of stuff, because they pruned a lot of stuff from other classes, but they pruned next to nothing from Unholy DKs other than our 15% DR. We've kind of kept all of the things that made us somewhat useful anyway, and everybody else has lost theirs.
All right. What do you guys think about Frost versus Unholy? Like, if they're tuned in a similar way, is there a reason to pick one over the other in a meta scenario?
I guess when you think about meta, you're thinking of like keys that last a long time, and then the benefits of Frost kind of start to wane a little bit because Unholy can have the chance to do like a full 30 seconds of ramping and bursting. Whereas I'd say that the benefit of Frost is the fact that the damage is just so quick and instant and rewarding that way. Whereas Unholy does take a little bit of time to get it out, but when it's out, it's there for ages. Like when you burst, you're at that peak of damage for a long time before you start to drop off. Whereas Frost looks to be more attuned towards lower key styles or just bursting in general. So like raiding would be a really good example where I think personally Frost would be a lot better, because if you think like Fallen King, those orbs, you have multiple fast waves of low health orbs that just need to die as soon as possible, which is where I don't think Unholy can do so well. It can do all right, but I don't think it would be able to do like the same type of 45-second AoE burst that Deathbringer Frost could do. So I think there's enough separation in terms of their damage profile that gives them an edge in a certain position, but because the tuning's so bad, like even that edge is not enough for you to play, for you to switch off of on Unholy.
Right.
But that's just my thoughts.
Yeah, I would agree to that. Like, Frost has the potential of being. Frost is still Frost, but the problem I see with Frost being good at the moment is that, me personally, I don't feel like Frost is what Frost used to be, where it used to be this CD heavy class, which does a lot of its damage inside of cooldowns, right? Now it feels more that I'm just slamming my buttons, but they don't really do anything. I feel like Breath doesn't do anything. Like, all my cooldowns are just, I'm pressing them, but nothing is really happening. That's like the biggest difference between Frost and Unholy right now, I would say.
That's such a good point. Breath, what have they done to Breath? Like, I don't understand why they've nuked Breath so hard. Like, Breath and Icy Death Torrent doing the same amount of damage in a key.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Yes.
That seems
One
so
is
silly.
totally passive, while the other one, you actually have to do things to make it do damage, and it just does the same damage. Why should I talent that point? Makes no sense.
Yeah, like the only argument I've been able to find for that is literally for damage amp purposes, or just anywhere where you need to where you could centralize some damage into like an ad wave. That's really it. But like in keys, that's not going to be easy to pull off because it's constant AoE. Like, I mean, Pit of Sauron, for example, that's literally every boss has constant AoE. There's almost no points where you're a single target, because if you control Undead and take that skeleton with all of the minions onto the forge boss, the whole thing is AoE, in which Icy Death Torrent wins, even though it's kind of like padding on that one specific boss. But in Raid, it's a little bit different. But yeah, Mythic Plus, I think there'd definitely be an issue. Anyway, I tangent off with that. Sorry.
What do you guys think about the lack of raid buff? Or is grip a raid buff? Let's discuss.
No. That's like saying is Typhoon a raid buff? It's ridiculous.
I wouldn't compare Typhoon really, but
what would you compare to?
Compared to what?
What is a grip equivalent to?
I mean, maybe some sort of.
I mean, it's so fight specific, in my opinion. That, for an example, Dimensius, sure, it was mandatory. You could not do it without 2 TKs. But
that, I mean, like, they did that on purpose because of the uproar as well. Like,
yes,
it's not even like they've done that for the health of the game. They've done that to be like, see, we told you it's got a use.
I got a good one here. Warlock Portal, I would say, is a good equivalent.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Do you think it's as in the same level of usefulness?
Yeah, because sometimes you use Warlock Portal, some fights you doesn't use it at all. Well, most times you use it, but it doesn't have like a really important part. But some fights it's a must, right? And that's what I feel with grip is, besides that grip sometimes is literally not a button that we press.
Yeah, you can go a full fight never using it and be completely fine.
Yeah.
Whereas with gateway, it's like even if it's down and you use it, you're at least saving yourself some footwork that you would have had to do, and that's going to result in maybe a DPS increase if you're back to the boss faster. I do like to look at grip as a way of being like a DPS increase in some way, where like you can bring something to your pack and nuke it down quicker than if somebody else had to do their CC for it instead. That's more of like a sort of a take if you're a beginner, I suppose. You're looking for ways to use it, but when you're in our circle, I suppose maybe more so yours, Waalpen, it's less looked at like that because everybody else is good enough that you could do without a DK. You could do something else to make that happen other than Dementis. That was like the only time I've ever thought like you must have one. Like for even Fire like they kind of tried to make it.
Oh yeah, I was
So
going to
that having
mention
one was
that.
better.
Fire was an insult to DKs. It's like, yeah, final boss,
Yes.
you need a grip for this. And they were like, yeah, you don't. We can just sort it out without grips. It's like, all
Yeah,
right.
literally.
Yes. And DK was just badly tuned that
Yeah.
you didn't want it anyway. Like if it was close to tuned, you would probably bring one, but then you just like, well, blood DK exists and it has
Yeah.
more.
Like, would you rather it that there was more instances in the game that required grip so that you felt more useful? I mean,
No.
yeah, and then in that case, it's like you cannot possibly sit there. If they agree and say like, yeah, we don't want to put more things in that require it, then you cannot sit there and say that it is a raid cooldown and it's adequate for us to like not have a I don't know our 2% haste buff to be raid wide.
It's such a binary one as well. Like most raid buffs are nice to haves. Like, okay, well, without a mage, yes, arcane intellect is very powerful, but you don't need it. You could do it without it. Versus if you don't have grip in certain scenarios, you literally can't do the boss. Like you can't do Dimensions Mythic without 2 DKs. And I think that's why you end up in this weird situation where it's like sometimes you are the most useful spec in the game. Sometimes you just most of the time you're not useful at all.
Sometimes you have to feel bad when a monk has used both their roles to go to this target that's really far out and try and like ring it or something, and you just grip it, and now they have to walk back. I think that's quite funny, but also some people must absolutely hate having a DK because of that. What are you guys doing in terms of?
What would a decent raid buff be?
I mean, I think everybody says the same things, don't they? Normally, they say that the haste, unholy momentum, could be raid wide, but I don't know. I feel like that would be fine, but it would be such an easy fix, such a plaster,
Yeah,
a wet band-aid.
I don't know. I liked back in the day we had Horn of Winter that gave attack power.
Oh, yeah.
They could just
Yeah, I
bring
like
that
that as
back,
well.
and people go like, "Nice." It's thematic. It works with past the game in the past, so it's like it doesn't come from anything, from nothing. Sorry.
Is there like a raid buff that 2 different classes can do? I can't think of one off the top of my head.
Nope.
Yeah.
No, that used to be the thing, right? Where you had to go do the spreadsheets to plan out, so you had all the raid buffs. And now everyone has their individual ones, except a couple.
Do you guys like the fact that you have to bring like one of everything to a raid in order to like have an efficient raid group in terms of buff wise?
I don't mind it.
I think it's quite nice. It means that there's always like there's nothing worse than being in a class and you badly tune and then you just get benched because oh yeah, Blizzard didn't tune your class correctly. Versus if you need everyone, it's kind of like you always have that spot. You are the warrior, you are the DK or whatever it is.
Yeah.
And you get that it's a bit more thematic in a sense.
Yeah, I
mean,
think
the only problem is that it happened to DK 2 out of 4 tiers in recent time. And many people don't think about this, but we had Undermined where we were literally grip was not a button for some reason. And then you had a Middersill, which it neither was a button. So you have gone from this very like from it being very, very good and useful into very, very bad. And if the tuning then is bad, which has been both in the Yggdrasil and Undermine, we become this class that never really gets brought. And it's a very sad point of being a DK, and I just feel very, very useless.
It's funny because like in Raid, that's kind of how it goes. That's how it's been for DK quite a few times. But then when you look at Mythic Plus, it's like you kind of had the opposite run where DK just has such a great time in most cases in Mythic Plus. But is it impossible for them to just balance us so that we can be good in both? I don't know. Or at least have like Frost could be really good in Raid, and then Unholy could be really good in Plus or something like that. I feel like that would be better. But in terms of like guaranteeing it some sort of raid buff spot for us, grip is just not it.
Yeah.
And not to mention, like, grip isn't something you can do all the time. It's like you have to, if you miss it or something like that. Whereas you can't miss a demonic gateway. Excuse me. You just have to not die as a.
You'd be surprised.
That's why our group has two.
You get to know when you miss a gateway.
Oh yeah.
I think I only had one bad gateway from our Warlock and our Dementia's procs, but I know many a times where the mouse over macro has gripped the Artosian instead of the guy, and I instantly, the first time that happened to me during prog, I was like, this is not a macro I'm going to be using.
I only use my mouse over for that boss, by the way.
I always recommend against that. I could not, but that's why you're you, Biceps. That's why you write the guide.
I used mouse over as well, and I think I failed it twice during progression.
All it takes is one time for you to be eternally embarrassed and then never want to do it again.
Yeah. That's very true.
What are you guys thinking in terms of the raid? Are you excited for the raid?
I'm very. Because grip is a button that is being used a lot of the times. And that's a good thing.
Have you where's the best place in terms of these fights coming up that you think is very, very handy for a DK to be in?
Bell of Ren, the first boss in the March of Kraldanas, we are mandatory as we were on Dementius, I think.
Is it for... I didn't actually
Simply because the two birds that spawned are permanently casting.
No.
And they spawn outside of the boss because you have to run away with a big circle, basically. And you have to soak them like away from the boss, and then you have to get the ads in to basically get damage. Otherwise, they take very little damage, and you take even more damage. So them being gripped is going to be very, very important. So you might at least want one, maybe two. Hard to say.
Is that a mythic only mechanic, or is that the same in heroic?
That's a heroic as well, but it's not as important on heroic, I would feel. Obviously, blood decay. When you think like that, oh, we can just bring a blood decay. The problem is that the blood decay will not be stacking with the group. He will be on opposite side of the raid, which will be there's a frontal going on a lot of the times, which means having a DK grip, blood decay gripping is very, very bad in many sense. In
That's
the same
nice
way
for us,
that
isn't it?
DPS DK would be. Yeah, it's very nice for us, I would say. Then there is the last boss on Midnight Falls. There is these like crystals that we don't really know how they work, where they are they grippable? We don't really know. So they could potentially become something we grip. No idea.
Yeah. I think Illyria is going to have some grippage going on as well, from the way that the journal describes some of those droplets. I've got a feeling they're going to be grippable ads.
Yeah, and then you have Fallen King with the images. Grip is a great utility to stop the images, as it is instant, and you have 2 charges, and it's a great mechanic to help the raid out in many senses. Voracious, which is the ads on the sides. If you see that your raid is falling behind, or you need to go in a specific side, which on Mythic you need to have a certain amount on each side to make it happen. You will basically be able to save the raid, which many others might not be able to do.
Yeah, I loved on Ford Weaver when somebody fucked up where they needed to put the put the ads, and you could just go into the pool with AMS and grip it in, and then save your entire raid. I always felt like a proper hero doing that.
Yes.
Yeah, I think with Voracious as well on that. I think like once raids get the mechanics down, though, that will kind of start to lose its spark a little bit. That will lose its usefulness. But I mean, I guess you could say that for many fights. Kind of like it's a saving group as like a making up for somebody else's mistake type button. Biceps, have you had had a chance to test the raid at all?
Unfortunately, no. As that, yeah.
That's a shame.
So I'm going in blind. I'm quite excited to see what it's about. We'll see.
How's it?
But it sounds like it's promising for us. I'm not sure, Waalpen, if you can share. Are you guys disproportionately preparing more DKs than other classes?
No. Because we know that the tuning is so off and so bad at the moment that the disparity between classes are up to almost 50%.
Right.
It is an impossible task at the moment to know what is going to be good and what is going to be bad. Because the tuning that's going to come on the 17th right before the work week, it's going to be, if it's not huge, the one before Mythic is going to be very, very big to show when we get into Heroic and see how things line up. I'm afraid to how this tuning is going to be, but many people say that it's going to be fine in the end. I'm not so sure at the moment.
I think
Because
I would agree.
Yeah.
It's just because
they've said that they don't take any information from beta anymore, which to me sounds very, very dumb. As they're only taking data from live, basically.
Do you think they're gonna over nerf it? I feel like there's a tendency where a strong spec usually does not get over nerfed, right? It goes to being super strong to being just a little bit more strong. Do they ever over nerf? Is that a risk, do you think?
If it happens before Heroic. They never over nerf anything generally when it goes from Heroic week into Mythic week. I think the biggest nerf we've had there is between 5 and 7%, which generally, if you're a really, really good spec, that doesn't really make you not being brought, right? It just means that you might not be the best, but you're still like top 5, which, yeah, it's still being brought. So people should be most afraid of what is going to come on the 17th or 18th of March, wherever you basically are.
What do you think they'll nerf specifically in Unholy's kit if they are to send us a nerf? Because I can imagine them doing the ghouls, definitely. I can't imagine them doing much to do with the forbidden knowledge, because that's kind of like the new thing that's supposed to be in. But I can't imagine them nerfing ghouls. But I have heard that Unholy ghoul damage is a bit too much for what it should be, and it shouldn't be this anyway. And there's a couple of bugs flying around, so I'm sure if they just fix those bugs, that would be a natural nerf to the spec anyway, to put it into a bit more of a proper of the right position.
Hopefully we don't get a double whammy where they get fixed bugs that nerfs us and then also nerf us to bring us in line, and then they overshoot.
Yeah, that is what I'm worried about. That's where my fears lie. Fix the bugs and then still give us a flat 50% nerf or something stupid.
Yeah. It's always the biggest issue is when there are bugs that are positive and they fix them and then they still nerf the class. That's generally a very, very bad thing to happen.
What do you think they could do to Frost to fix it?
I mean, they have to fix the gameplay more than anything, in my opinion.
What happens if they revert to Exterminate nerf, where it reduced the obliterate cost?
I think that'd be good. Definitely a good start. But I think they definitely.
It's a good start, but I just think that they need to uncap Exterminate stacks, if anything.
Yeah, I don't know why they haven't already done that.
That's
like if they do that, you don't have an issue.
Yeah.
Like, because then you have infinite time to spend the Exterminates.
Or at least at a push, make it 3. Because there is a world where you can just spend 1 Exterminate stack and then do your Frostworm.
Yeah.
But the fact that it's capped out as 2 is crazy.
Yeah. Yes. That is such an easy fix.
Should not be kept. Yes. It's the easiest fix there is. And all of a sudden, all the problems that you have are just gone. And then the class feels good again. It's just this one thing that is just doesn't make it feel right at the moment. And if you just do that, it's probably going to be a lot better.
I do think there is definitely something they need to do in terms of the single target, and they need to find a way of buffing the single target that doesn't make them stupid good in AOE. And I mean, you would just the easiest blanket could just be obliterate, just buff obliterate, and then all of a sudden your single target's going to be great. But then you do then force builds, you then force people into
force the two-hander again every time because they see obliterate as his button, and then it always becomes obliterate two-hander because it scales way better than one-handers.
I feel like
I was really.
They can't even buff Frost Strike because that's in trouble with Frostbane.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was so surprised that they nerfed Frost Strike and Frostbane, because that means that they thought that Frostbane single target was too strong, which I did not feel at all.
No, I didn't either. I would agree.
Yeah, so that was so weird that I thought they were gonna buff Frost Strike but nerf Frostbane, but they did nerf both instead. When there was this tuning pass on beta, when basically Unholy got buffed to the skies. So yeah, I just feel like they are very out of touch with the game in general, and hopefully they fixed it now when they have a lot of time with Midnight being out and stuff, and to focus on this instead of focus on building up the game, which they have.
I think we've always been quite lucky that the Frost spec has always been designed quite nicely, and I think this is probably the first time in quite a while where it's kind of gone back on itself. And I think I was speaking to Kazak from the DK Discord, and he suggested that Frostbane should also get procced from Howling from Rime as well, which I think would be pretty good because that could then increase the chances of you actually getting a hard hitting single target spell when you're spec that way. That could be something, I think.
I think one issue is that there's such a big difference to the procs in single target versus AoE. You get so many in AoE and you don't get nearly as many in single targets, right?
Yeah, and there's definitely
the fact.
Go on.
Yeah, the fact that you, for example, on 4 targets, you are almost perma Frostbane, but on like 2 targets, you are getting as little procs as almost on single target. So I don't understand the proc rate at all, in my eyes.
I think it's still a mystery.
Yeah. I don't think they
what does it proc? How much is it supposed to proc off? Because if you just had a flat amount of how it should proc, it would be easy. But I don't feel like there is any like. I don't know how to explain it, but it's doesn't make sense how it procs.
It incites a bit of degen gameplay as well, like the control on dead thing in Pit of Sauron. But now any sort of bosses that have just something else you can hit, you're going to be begging your raid not to kill those ads so you can get Frostbane procs, so you can do loads of damage. But I think there's only one actual instance in the raid that I think Frostbane can really shine, and that's obviously the light blinded Vanguard, where there's like 2 bosses pretty constantly and 3 bosses intermediately. I think obviously there Frostbane will be really good. It's kind of like I played a bit of Breath-bane doing the Soul Hunters, and that felt really good when they were all stacked together. They're constantly getting Frostbane procs. It felt so powerful. But yeah, in single target, rip, absolutely nothing.
The problem with that fight is on Mythic it is perma too. You are never gonna get 3 bosses on that fight.
Yeah, that's true actually, yeah.
Yeah, so you are permanently just hitting 2 targets, which just makes Frostbane not proccing, not doing anything. You are that's like the one that's the one thing I hate with both Frost and Unholy is that the 2 target cleave that was our king thing before, I feel like we have just lost all the power in 2 target cleave scenarios on both specs.
I completely agree.
And there's no Deathcore cleave anymore, right?
Yeah, no Deathcore cleave, no Oblit cleave as it was before. Breath doesn't really do anything. So yeah, like you're just doing your single target and you're hitting 2 targets, which just feels bad. You generally, I would want something more on 2 targets that would do something, like the Deathcore cleave, like the Oblit cleave in D&D, even though it was very very bad.
I could
But
see
it
like
added something.
I could see Breath becoming a penultimate node and then having like a choice node underneath it where it will give it so either it hits a second target for full primary damage as well, or it just gives you hyperexia to give you more like single target damage or something instead. But I definitely think there's an avenue where they can make that our specialty. Because I mean, when you're playing Deathbringer and you go Northwinds, obviously you have Ryan now that's doing so much like 2 target damage, but it's still not enough to really make it anything special. I mean, yeah, you do kind of miss that. Unholy has good 2 target cleave only because its single target cleave is so good and
Yes.
half of it is just replicated. But it wouldn't necessarily, like, if there was a third target, it wouldn't be like, oh, okay, you don't no longer have this niche, because it's not really a niche, because it's like a byproduct instead. I think Unholy does sort of, in terms of the fact that you can do all that damage from range, that's a very lovely niche for sure.
Yes.
For sure. You're saying Frostica no longer has a niche.
I mean, with the current
I would
tuning,
say that Frostic is not doing anything that is special anymore. With Breath not being as good as it used to be, it's a very like it was a good niche and now it's just gone.
Right.
Simply because how they've tuned Breath, in my opinion.
I'd like to see Breath make a comeback. It's a 1.5 minute spell. Like, it's supposed to hit hard, and it's not.
Yes.
I don't know.
Which
Or it could.
it feels. It's a lot about feeling when you talk, but it's when you press a button, you want it to do something, right? You want it to do damage, right? That's why you're pressing the button. But right now, it feels like Frost's main priority damage is just coming from fillers, and that's been my biggest concern is that the filler spells are doing the damage,
right?
Which it should not be in.
I think feeling does have like a when you played the game for long enough. I think feeling does definitely, it's there for a reason. Like your gut feeling that something's off or something's not right it comes from so much experience of playing and you being able to feel what it's supposed to feel like, if that makes sense, without saying feel too many times. But I think in this scenario, like it definitely is that feeling where something's off, and I think Frost has a bit more of a satisfying payoff that we are so used to because season 3 was so good. Where now it doesn't feel super satisfying to play Unholy until you've reached like 30 seconds into combat and your full burst is done. Then you kind of look at details and you're like, oh, now I'm satisfied. But pressing the buttons themselves aren't very satisfying. And yeah, I think because Frost feels so clunky, it does kind of feel that way.
What we haven't brought this up, but what do you guys thought about Pestilence?
Oh yeah, such a good point actually.
Mate,
as an Unholy person, Biceps, I'll let you take the floor.
I think it's an exciting spell. Like, you look at it, you're like, you get so many questions immediately, going like, well, what if I save it into execute and I just load up my diseases for the entire fight and make this huge explosion at the end? Or when should I then explode it? When's the optimal time? Right? How much should I build it up for? Can I potentially build it up and spread it to lots of minions to explode it? There are so many interesting kind of ways to interact with it. I love it. They did kill it though. Like previously with 150%,
Yes.
that was good because it was like, okay, I'm actually getting something extra by building up a long duration. Now you don't really get that, which is a bit sad.
I remember I was on the train when like that was like at its peak, and I was like theory crafting with some people on like what to do with Pestilence because of how strong it was, and I think we'd got to the point where it was like on Fallen King, if you just let Pestilence just keep going forever for the entire fight until the very last ad wave, you could just nuke it and do a ridiculous amount of damage, like into the millions, rather than just 1 million, which obviously when we hit like doing a 1 million hit with Pestilence was great. You could just save it up for like 7 minutes and then just spread a 7-minute Violent Plague on all of those
yeah.
orbs and just hit them all for like 10 mil. It's rightly so that it did get nerfed, but
It's
it
like
also is very
that's
fun.
exciting, right? That's like,
Yeah.
can we figure out some interesting way to do this that isn't just, just use the cooldoffs and cooldown and just hit the buttons the entire fight. So I'm a bit sad that they nerfed it so much. I hope it gets brought back. Blizzard, come on, it's fun. Don't kill the fun.
Exactly.
I
mean, I'd never think that the spec that's easier should do more damage. And currently, with obviously Rider being completely passive and you basically never having to alter the way you play whatsoever, I feel like that shouldn't be the stronger hero talent. Like it should be Sand Lane, which is significantly harder, especially for a new player. If you master Sand Lane, like you should get some sort of payoff or reward for that. In my opinion, like it is a bit of a common theme that classes have like one hero tree that's interactive and introduces a new button, and then they have another one which is almost completely passive, which I guess is fine if you want that, but that passive tree shouldn't be the one that's better. So like Pestilience Sand Lane made sense that it was stronger, and if you were able to actually find out when the best place to pop it was, you were paid off for that.
Yeah.
I think then double nerfing the diseases on top of Pestilence was a bit silly.
Yeah. Waalpen, what do you think? Do you like Pestilence?
I loved it. It was the best spell in the game. It added depth to a spec that didn't have anything. Like it added complexity where you could min-max a lot of stuff, which right now when you play Riders, it doesn't exist in the same way. So I was so excited when it was actually good and you did things. And obviously I min-maxed it to, there is a boss in the new M+ season where, well, you get a 300% damage increase. Well, I decided to do 25% of the damage to the boss in one go and one-shot it. But that was really, really fun. It was exciting because you had to think, oh, should I do this? When should I pop it? Because every pack, it was like, well, the mobs are getting lower and lower. When should I pop it? When is the right time? Because you want to get the maximum damage, but you want them as low as possible. So there was all of this thinking going around when you should pop it that made it so much more fun to play Unholy, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And you had to think a lot more about the spec.
I agree, and I think it's such a simple to some degree interaction, right? Currently,
Yes.
it's a bit silly because we just build up this huge disease durations and we just don't use it, right? Single target.
Yeah.
I think, like, do you even need to press Outbreak after the first one? I don't think so.
Blood bursts.
Exactly. And if you play Sand Lane, you
Yeah.
surely don't need to do it.
Yeah, with Sand Lane you don't.
Yeah.
So you go there, you build up this dot which is just several minutes long, and it has literally zero reason to be that long. Like there is no value you get from it unless you pick up Pestilence. But the current version is just quite weak and not very exciting.
I think that the sort of mechanic of like erupting your diseases for like their full duration, like a percentage of that damage is interesting, but the way that it is in now is not interesting, because with Scourge Strike doing it every time it hits, there's no play. There's no like actual integration. You're going to do that spell anyway, and there's no world where you think to yourself, "Oh, I'm going to Scourge Strike now so I can erupt my disease." You just don't.
Yeah.
So this is not really fun.
Same thing with Infliction of Sorrow, right? That used to be based off the remaining duration of your total disease, right? You got a percentage of that every time you hit Vampiric Strike. That's just also gone, right? There's literally no interaction related to the total duration of your diseases anymore, which I think is a bit sad.
I liked Infliction of Sorrow.
Yeah, me too.
It's very confusing.
When it came out, it was as exciting as Pestilence was, in my opinion. When you played it on beta for War Within, I felt the same excitement as I did with Pestilence, because it was something that I built up and then I exploded. And obviously, you have more. With Pestilence, you decide more. With Sorrow, it just exploded. You didn't really have an option, right? But it was still excitement of getting it as far as possible, which you Bloodlust, PI, and stuff. All of this. So it added excitement to something when you see these are ending, it added excitement,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And now it like you see the ends. Well, my number went up, but I didn't really do anything. I just kept pressing my buttons, which is basically a maintaining buffs more than anything right now.
I think one of my fondest memories of Unholy and like really feeling like I'm doing something was like Aberrus the Shadow Crucible, when you were just a single target nuker. I felt a
Yeah.
similar way with Liberation of Undermined Sand Lane. Those 2 tiers, I really felt useful there. I do miss that. I would like to see them do something more with Sand Lane though. Sorry.
Now, I was just going to say, if we have any potential closing remarks, I think we have covered a lot of interesting topics today.
Yeah.
It was very nice. Do you guys
It's been
have
great
anything
to
else
talk
you
shop
want
with you guys.
to raise towards the end that you felt like we haven't really covered in a sufficient manner?
I hope that the next expansion is DK themed. We've got Paladin themed this one. Let's have some DK love next season or expansion.
No, I think we've brought up most stuff that was surrounding DK.
All right.
What about you, Bicep?
No, I think we're there. I'm excited. I always like new things, right? And this is the we haven't had this many new things in quite a while, at least for Unholy. Been quite stagnant, so yeah. I'm excited to play it out. We'll see if I get bored in the end. For me, it usually depends on like if we do damage, I'm fine. Like if I can see myself on the top of damage meter, if the rotation is maybe a little bit boring, I can live with it. You know what I mean?
I think fun and damage go hand in hand.
Yes, they do, right? But still, it needs to be rewarding, and you need to feel like there is some skill expressions. That does worry me. That eventually, especially if you get tuned low, you're kind of sitting there at the bottom, and you feel like I can do literally nothing to improve this.
Yeah.
I had that feeling back in BFA during the Janus here with Unholy. That was like a similar situation where the rotation was so straightforward, and we were badly tuned. I was like, okay, I'm powerless here. What can I do to actually do better?
That's my ultimate fear. Is like all you can sort of bank on is RNG. That would be my ultimate fear for us as a class this season. Fingers crossed, it's not going to be like that. Well,
yeah, I would agree, definitely.
Well, thanks everybody.
All
Been
right.
great to chat to you guys. Honestly,
You too.
loved it.
Appreciate it. I think let's make this a more frequent occurrence for sure.
It'd be like like Max and his guys that always do the streams. We'll just come on to chat shit about DK. Call ourselves Army of the Dead. Something like that.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Have a good one. Have fun at midnight.